my God, we're halfway through March. Oh my God. I've got some work sessions to do on my taxes and I keep putting them off. Why? Well, duh. Little thing called ADHD. If you were to read Article 5 of the ADHD Bible, you would see it in the statements right there. Thou shalt have the world's shittiest time management, especially for tasks which thine decides are stupid. So that's where I sit with that. How about we talk to a fellow neurodivergent about this? I think it's time to get Carolyne Whelan on the phone. Let's get. You are listening to ADHD Big Brother, the podcast for adults struggling with their ADHD and their depression and anxiety and blech. I'm your host, Russ Jones. I'm an ADHD coach, and I run the Platinum Award-winning community coaching of the same name, ADHD Big Brother. And I also have ADHD and depression. It's craptastic. Welcome aboard. Let's learn some stuff, laugh at some stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, here's some stuff. Welcome to the podcast. The podcast. Welcome to it. Oh my God. Welcome to a podcast. How are you doing? It's like, seriously, how are you doing? I got all day. Hit me with it. Open up your book, melt those layers, peel them down to the core. Oh my God. You know, I want to do a shout out real quick. That reminds me. We have a community member, Debbie Carvery. Debbie. You know, we'll blend this in with the mental health report, you know, where we're normalizing talking about our skull spaghetti, the good, the bad, and the weird. So this is my mental health update. We have a community member, Debbie Carvery, shout out to Debbie, and she's a complex trauma coach, super generous with her knowledge and has given a few workshops for us on internal family systems. And if you've never heard of IFS before, that's internal family systems, dude, Google it. Or you could join our community and talk to Debbie directly, but watch the replays of the workshops that she's given. I think I got emotional on every single one, all of them. Oh God, I really like IFS because it's almost like a creative exercise. You know, you're imagining a child, the inner child. You're imagining creatively these people that are protectors, and my God, you go on these guided journeys. The last one that we did was on exiles. Profound experience. Very cool. So I just wanted to shout out Debbie. You're awesome. And those workshops are unbelievable. And I've been meaning to shout you out for a while, and I don't recall if I did or not. So either here's another shout out or here's your initial shout out. I don't know which one we're on. So anyway, for my mental health this week, I feel lighter because of that workshop, especially. I feel good. I'm really feeling called to nature lately, I'm noticing. And if I don't schedule it, I know I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to say my commitment here is that I'm going to schedule time this month to go to the snow up in the San Gabriel Mountains. It looks beautiful right now. God, just thinking about it makes me feel good. So so that's that for me. Okay, let's get into this. It's an interview one, so let's just jump right in. I connected with my guest literally like a week ago. We hit it off. We decided to record. We recorded, and it was awesome. You know, who is it? I'll tell you who. None other than the great Carolyne Whelan. We mainly wanted to talk about time management issues as it relates to working on our finances because we're in the finance month. But, you know, you can't have two ADHDers in a conversation without bonding over topics like solopreneurship, determining our worth. Fun stuff, you know, the good stuff. So here, let me introduce you to her real quick. Carolyne Whelan is the former editor-in-chief at Adventure Cyclist and Dirt Rag, and the current editorial director for Overland Expo. She is the founder at Forward Motion Coaching and Retreats, where she works with writers to break through writer's block and feel empowered with the skills of purposeful self-editing. She spent years as an instructor working with college and graduate students, even high schoolers. She's helped over 500 writers hone their craft, understand the world of publishing, and have fun writing. Come on, let's go. She has a BA and an MFA in creative writing and brings an empathetic touch to her coaching style. She lives in Montana, freaking great, with her partner and their dogs. And when she isn't writing, editing, or coaching, she can typically be found in the woods with mud in her hair. She's getting dirty up there. Doesn't she just sound like someone that you'd want to talk to? Well, I don't want to brag, but I actually got to talk to her. So, want to hear? Here's a conversation with Carolyne and myself already in progress. One of the things that was really eye-opening for me during this month, because we're doing this whole month on finances, was the money story. Have you
Yeah,
done those before? Are you familiar with the money story?
I am. I'm currently in a program called Scale with Purpose that's put on
Oh,
by
right
these
on.
two amazing women named Cassie and Shay, who run a company called Bucket List Bombshells, and it's for uh, mid-career women solopreneurs and small business owners who are at a stage where they're looking to kind of step up
Wow.
and don't really know quite what to do, what that should look like. Uh, so at the beginning of that, we had somebody come on to kind of do the money story thing,
Oh,
and I was a little bit like, I'm not money avoidant, but it's a tricky thing to think about, you know?
what's your money
So,
story? That I love. Let's peel your onion all the way to the core. Do you?
ooh.
What is? I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. What is your money story?
I think that my parents were very good with finances and money.
Mhm.
And I've been listening to I love listening to podcasts. I
Okay.
feel like for me, podcasts are like they're like the kids that hang out with the many voices in my head to distract them so that like me and the one that needs to be paying attention can just get our work done together.
Yeah.
So there's usually some kind of podcast or music or something going on for me. And there's been some really helpful financial podcasts that I've been listening to. And uh, one of them was talking about how people who grew up in commute like more working class families didn't necessarily do a lot of they're maybe good at budgeting and budgeting mentality, but
Mm.
not so much at like the risk that might be involved in that with stocks, for example,
Oh, okay.
or debt. And that really resonated with me a lot because my parents were very good about keeping finances tight and good and not putting a lot of pressure on the family in a way that like I as a kid could necessarily feel it. But it also
Yeah.
was a like we don't spend what we don't have. We aren't
Yeah.
reaching out past our means. We're not going to go on a vacation that we can't pay off immediately. We don't
Yeah.
do stocks because who knows what could happen. So more recently, and I also never knew which parent was like the quote unquote breadwinner. They both worked and they kept it very tight how much either of them made and which one was bringing in more. And my mom now says that
Interesting.
it really fluctuated over the years. They were both
Mhm.
union members, both worked for the state, and so uh, it wasn't any of my business, and they didn't want to create any kind of idea of like the genders around money that
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
parent is the supporter
Mhm.
and or anything like that. So I think that they really did their best to give me a good relationship with money, but then my I have to come into that at some point, you know?
Are we like, and where did it all go south?
Yeah. And I think, I was listening to one of your episodes, maybe the one with Tina,
Oh yeah.
and you were talking about having a lot of debt and credit card debt. And
Yeah.
I think of myself, and when I talk to people who work around me, partners that I've had, they consider me very good with money. And as you and I talked earlier, I'm not a spreadsheet person,
Mhm.
but I do have like a good money intuition, I think, of like what is a comfortable number for me to be spending on something, what is a good value, things like
Oh
that.
wow.
But I get really tripped up with things like I had a credit card that was on auto pay, and then the bank had a problem where they switched. the auto pay from taking out of my checking to my savings, and suddenly I owed them $15,000, and I was in the middle of traveling somewhere for a work trip, and my credit card gets canceled at the airport. And
What?
it's like those kinds of things that are just really you can't escape yourself sometimes. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, like the hardest part of being good at something is that you still have to face your weaknesses
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
regardless.
it's some of that too, I find has been like the out of sight, out of mind problem for ADHDers,
Yeah.
myself, big time. It seems like we kind of maybe have similar money stories where it's like we're fine. There's no need to feel like we're not fine, but nobody's talking about it.
Yep.
Mine was added, and so that well for me that was, I think that's where my credit card problem came from because I'm like, I can have things. I'm just going to have things, and I'm fine as long as I don't look at it. Like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
what is that all about? And-
I trust myself. I wouldn't spend it if I didn't have it. So if I spent it, then I must have it. It'll be okay.
yeah, this company is obviously giving me the money to buy this guitar, so
Yeah.
I should treat myself because, YOLO or whatever it is.
Chase isn't stupid. They wouldn't loan me this money if they didn't know I was good for it.
Exactly. They know something that I don't know, and I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So then, we're both solopreneurish,
Hmm.
right? We have to take care of our money. I don't know to say we're successful, but like the idea that we're doing things on our own to me is automatically successful.
Absolutely.
So that to me is great. But what comes with that is a ton of responsibility on having our finances managed in some respect. How are you finding that journey for yourself?
I think that starting my own business and taking it seriously, which
Mhm.
again, I have to really credit Cassie and Shay for
Okay.
forcing me into that mindset that I'm I'm not I am the CEO of a business. I'm not the wild animal that snuck into the banquet while the CEOs of businesses were having a luncheon, which is how I feel emotionally.
Okay.
But it's not true, Like I deserve to be at that luncheon as a
Hmm.
business owner, which means that I need to take on the responsibilities that come with that. And
Yeah.
that has really, I think, forced me to grow up in a lot of ways. And as easy as it is to just not pay that $25 gym membership and just wait for it to go to credit collectors and then wait for the 7 years for your credit to get erased and be like, this is an appropriate way to handle things. It's
Hmm.
not, even though I've done it more than once.
Yeah.
And now the opposite is really working of I have money owed to me and I'm just going to invoice it now. And I'm going to have reminders set up that I'm going to follow up every like X amount of days. And I don't like spreadsheets, but I do like systems.
Yeah.
And the thing that I get wrapped up in is, and I think this is something else that you talk about pretty often of like the shiny new systems that you then forget about. I
Oh,
hate
dude.
those
Yeah.
because then you end up having like part of your information here and part of your information here, and then
Hmm.
I get lost in my own mania. So it's really a lot easier to just have like my one banking system where I have all my invoices and I have dates assigned to them. And before I do work, I send out the invoice and then I can see how much is getting set up. And then the bank that I use takes out money for taxes. They take out money for operations. And then I can see all of that. And
Wow. That's a cool system. It automatically takes out taxes and operations and stuff.
that bank is called Found. And
Found.
it's not a bank, it's a free banking software that is partnered with the bank and it's designed for solopreneurs and small business owners and freelancers. And
Wow.
that has been really life-changing to me. And that's
Yeah.
like a software that's really easy to implement. It's not that I have to go somewhere else. And I think that's something
Hmm.
maybe you can relate that once
Yeah.
I have you never leave the party to go to a second location, you know? And so if
Man.
I start going to this like one app after another, then I'm gonna get distracted. I'm gonna get lost. I'm gonna forget where things are. So I just have the one banking app, and in that I can do my invoicing, I can do my follow-ups, I can keep track of the work that I've assigned to people, and it makes it really easy, really streamlined, and I don't have to look at a spreadsheet and get myself really confused and overwhelmed.
God, that is really interesting. It's like the equivalent for me mentally of having tabs open. Like you have to go to this tab for this thing and then this tab for this thing. But on the way to these tabs, there's other tabs that are going to pull attention.
Yep,
And it's
yep.
it messes with my brain and creates massively ineffective time management.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's all like I think, there's a lot of talk about the ADHD tax, and that
Yeah.
tax can look like that $25 gym membership that you didn't pay that now is costing you $300 in collection fees. It can also be all of the needless time that gets spent uh, trying to track down invoices that if you just sent it when you were
Yeah.
thinking about it the first time, you wouldn't be using that time. Or having all of your information in one place that you know you're going to go to, even if it's not the prettiest, versus having a bunch of different softwares because somebody told you that it was going to solve your problem for you.
Yeah.
And then you get lost in all of the links that they have and everything else.
Oh man, that is probably one of the biggest time sucks ever. And then you
Mhm.
find, or then there's a software that claims to do everything, and you spend all kinds of time
Ugh,
inputting data into that one system, and then it has a flaw, a single flaw in it, and you're like, this doesn't work for me anymore. But you've
yep.
wasted $300 and da da da. It's that kind of stuff is
So
nuts.
relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an ADHD tax thing that I did today. I'll gladly share. I'm going to be vulnerable and tell you guys all how I screwed up today. But
Please.
maybe it's not a screw up. I don't know. I don't know if eggs are expensive across the board right now, but where I'm at, there's like bird flu and all. There's something's going on out there. The eggs are expensive right now, and but not at Trader Joe's. But the Trader Joe's doesn't open till 9 next to me. So when I drop off Alistair to school, there's the other grocery store, who shall not be named. And I went in and I saw that the eggs were like $14. But I wanted my omelet this morning. And the Trader Joe's that's open at 8 is like maybe 3 miles down. And it's going to be $4 for the eggs. So I basically fucking wasted. I took a $10 bill and I lit it on fire and I said, this is the money my time to go to Trader Joe's is a $10 bad move, man. Hindsight. But in the moment, I'm super impulsive and I'm super much like there's that sense of like, oh no, I don't want to go. And there's a full-on
Mhm.
temper tantrum going on internally. So anyway, that's my
Can
confession.
how much time would you have had to wait for the Trader Joe's to open and then for you to get there also?
That would have been okay. So I dropped Alistair off at around 8-ish. It would have been a 45-minute sit around waiting for the Trader Joe's to open.
I imagine that you are paid more than $10 an hour
Hmm.
at this stage in your career.
Hmm. Yeah. So
So,
there's that aspect of it, but the reality is I didn't have a client at 9 a.m.
mhm.
So nobody had booked that time.
Uh,
I could have called my girlfriend up. I could have shot the shit with her for a while. I could have done something. I could have just shot the shit with her on my way to the one that's already open at 8, 3 miles out of my way. I drive a Prius. It's not a gas problem. It's not, isn't that crazy? Anyway, that's a long-winded ramble about me overspending on eggs. But the omelet was really good.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know, I really get where you're coming from, and that's something that I would beat myself up over, or at least be like, why do I make these choices? But
Yeah,
hearing
yeah.
it from somebody else, there's like so many justifications that I can give that
Yeah.
like to like be like kind to yourself or like, yeah, of course you would not just sit waiting for 45 minutes. You have other stuff to
Yeah.
do. And
Your
if
time
you
is
were to sit in the
valuable.
car, you would have, and also
Yeah.
we don't have Trader Joe's here in Montana, in Missoula at the moment. I don't think in Montana at all, but I have
Mm.
lived with Trader Joe's, and it's like the Costco for snacks. Like I can never just go into Trader Joe's and spend the $4 on eggs. It's like $4 on eggs, what a bargain. Oh, $3 for dehydrated mango, what a bargain. And then you still end up spending the $10.
Okay. Well, that's where you and I would differ. I wouldn't because I hate being in the grocery store. So I'm like, what am I here for? Paper towels and eggs. Go. Holy shit, they're 14 bucks. Do it anyway. Then out I go.
I consider that a real superpower to just get what you
Oh,
want. I try to not go to the store because it's always it's just a commerce wonderland.
yeah. Yeah. So, well, so oh, I went birdwalky. I went so birdwalky on talking about my random eggs. How do we circle back to talking about our businesses and time management? Do you enjoy looking at your finances? Do you enjoy the process of sitting down and going through it? Because I hate it.
I I don't really enjoy looking at my personal finances.
Hmm.
I do it, but it's not something that brings me pleasure. I almost obsessively check my business finances. And
Okay.
it's I think it's what like keeps me going forward. And the account is there's not a lot of money in there. It's not like I'm like just like watching the dollars rain down or anything. But even
What
like
am I gonna do with all this money? Right.
these
Okay.
tens and tens of dollars are just
There's,
sitting there.
I can totally relate to that.
It's like it makes me feel proud of the work that I've done to see that there's some money in there that I have earned just from doing something that people think that I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that means a lot to me. And then that's also encouraging for me to be like just this morning, as I was drinking my coffee, I emailed somebody who uh, we've just been trying to figure out why something was labeled as net 30 on her end when it was invoiced as on receipt. And so it's like a small thing, but it was like looking at my finances and being like, oh, I also have this like X amount of dollars that is coming into me. Let me get on that and try to
Yeah.
track it down and be proactive. So the more I look at those finances, the more encouraged I feel by how far I've come. And then that
Yeah.
can really get me to keep on moving. And then I saw that an invoice was automatically sent to a client that I hadn't talked to in a while. So that also encouraged me on the other side to be like, oh, I should really reach out to this person, see how she's doing, see if she's pitched these publications that we talked about in our last chat,
Yeah.
see if she's what project she's currently working on. And so it kind of like keeps the business rolling because it's a good additional reminder of what I'm working on.
That's awesome. And I know that I have a question that popped up that it's
Yeah,
not really related to time management as it relates to finances, but I know I was interested in this. I'm learning this process right now, and it's kind of putting a dollar value on your worth and how, because I know you're a hugely generous person. I know this just from I met you one time, and we were already you're gonna give us a workshop in the community on writing, and you're very generous with your expertise, and I love that.
thanks.
And I like to be that way as well. If I can help somebody, I will, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then you're like, but how do I survive? How do I float? How do I, you know, tens and
Hmm.
tens of dollars that needs to add up to a little bit more, right?
Yeah, right.
How has your relationship to your worth grown, or where is it at, and how do you work with that as a solopreneur?
I was uh I was underpaid for so long, to the point that I would, try to talk about what I was making, and I would get that like, "Oh, honey," kind of look from people. And then I got a job that paid me what I felt was a good salary, and before going off on my own. And then there was all of that scope creep that can come with mismanagement and from caring. And the combination of those is just can just be really explosive. And so then I was in a position where I couldn't work in that environment anymore, but I still wanted to help them. So I came up with a price that was like, what like feels kind of ridiculous to charge, but would make it actually worth it for me to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, 8 times what they were paying me. And without even blinking, we're like, okay, which made me think like, oh, you could have been doing that this whole time, but
Yeah.
you knew that I'm a sucker who cares about the work that I do and who like wanted to see you succeed more than I wanted to see myself succeed.
Hmm.
And I don't charge other people how much I charged these folks for that work, but it is a good reminder of just because I don't have that doesn't mean that other people don't have it. And just
Totally.
because I haven't been getting paid this amount doesn't mean that I'm not worth that amount.
Hmm.
And it's been a bit of a journey learning how to not just like market myself because that is a longer process, but learning how to just talk about the work that I do in a way that can resonate with people to get them to think, oh, this has like an incredible value to it. And so whatever price I put out is already going to be like, yes, because you're already talking about solving the problem, and solving that problem for me uh is priceless. And so just give me a number and I can probably do it. And because I have a different relationship with money than most of my clients, uh, that number is probably going to be lower than they expect. And so it's a good value for them. And then
Good.
that allows me to give deep, deep, deep discounts to people who I really just want to help and charge them practically nothing or actually nothing because
Yeah.
I've like
That's awesome.
created this sort of buffer for myself based on the lifestyle that I've become comfortable with, which is
Ah,
pretty
I love that.
self-sustaining.
I love that, and I look up to that. That would be like a goal for me. I think one of the early on, I was like, I have no value. I have a heart and a belief in what I do, and I
Hmm.
believe in helping and being of service to people. So I was like, but it's worthless, and so I'll just give
Yeah.
it away because I care about you,
Yep.
and it's been taking me a very, very long time. And then I can't remember who gave me this advice, but I took it, which was, what does the number have to be so that you can live? And not just live, but like it's your job. You're saving for retirement. I can live in my RV, and like it's the for me to be able to do this and not get a job somewhere else as well and make
Hmm.
this it's my hobby or whatever. It has to be this. And so I
Yeah.
came up with that number, and it is such a hard pill to swallow at first because of imposter syndrome and like low
Mhm.
self-worth or whatever. But that's been my aspiration because then as things go on, I could do more. I could give more, do more. And it
Yeah.
also gives me a barometer of be like, okay, if this is what I'm going to charge, then this is what I provide. So I'll provide $18,000 worth of value and charge $100, right? Or,
Hmm.
to be
Yep.
ridiculous about it, right?
Hmm.
But what's it
Hmm.
going to take for me to feel good about it?
It's really hard, to and I think especially for ADHDers, it's really fascinating to me how many of us are like solopreneurs, small
Hmm.
business owners, because one would think that uh our neurostylings are incompatible with business owning, and being so great at time management. But I think that we don't work well when we're forced into a neurotypical structure. And running your own business, you can structure things, you can align things the way that works best for your thinking. But when you still do it, or when you do it, you're still influenced by however many years of being told that you shouldn't really be doing this. You have no place in the business economy because you don't fit in with this structure that,
Yeah.
of course, you don't fit into. And so when you're pricing yourself, you're like, okay, well, this is what somebody who has value would charge. I, as a valueless
That's
person, should be charging a small fraction of that, despite having all of these accolades and people telling me that what I offer them has been
yeah.
life-changing for them and everything. It's,
Yeah.
my clients also happen to be broken, and so they don't know what they're talking about either.
Yeah. Wow, isn't that interesting? God, this imposter syndrome BS is can just be the worst.
It's tough. It's really
Yeah.
tough.
There has to be a whole like even though this is completely true in my mind, I'm doing this anyway
Hmm.
because the paper says so, like the because I did the math in my head and I did the logical stuff, which feels weird. I do it anyway. That's so interesting. So going back to structuring our days and our time, do you have a time that you designate to looking at finances? That would be literally be exposure therapy for me to be like, you have to sit down and look at this.
I don't have really any time plugged in for anything.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and
You're rogue. You're
I'm a little rogue, and it's interesting that we're talking about time management because I think that that is still a version of time management. And it's not that neurotypical of like from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going to be doing X. And that was another podcast that you talked about of like this imaginary person that you could be who wakes up at 4 in the morning and does some like wind huff breathing and then goes for a 10-mile run and all of that. And then, it's
Yeah.
uh there are things that will get done in the day, and they will get done when my brain wants them to be done. And
Wow.
I have a lot of like trust the processness,
Okay.
and I need deadlines. So that's like the number one piece of structure that I have to have. I was assigned an article to write probably 13 years ago.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
uh
When's it due?
yeah, I think the publication is closed down.
Oh, so
So
not yet?
I wrote the first one and I was given a deadline and she was like, this is amazing. This is really phenomenal. I handed it in on time and I had all of my edits and it was a really seamless, wonderful process. This was when I was first starting in my career and it was really great. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I have this other idea. Are you interested? And she's like, yes. I had not yet been diagnosed with ADHD and I was like, okay, can I have a deadline for this? And she was like, just hand it in to me for whenever. So
What have you
whenever
done?
will come eventually, but I really need deadlines, and that is kind of how everything else is fit in. There, some things make more sense in the morning, some things make more sense in the evening. I try to look at my finances on my app maybe once a day and not at a time when I'm feeling stressed. So I'm not going to be looking at my banking app at 3 in the morning when I wake up from a nightmare, but I'll look at it maybe while I'm eating lunch. Or if I get like a notification that an invoice was sent out, then I'll take a look at it.
Mhm.
Or once a week, I think is also appropriate. But it's like a thing that gets done. And because I've learned to not have I have an adversarial relationship with myself in a lot of aspects, but not with my business. I think that I believe in my coaching of when I can like disassociate it from myself a little bit. So my
Hmm.
banking app, I look at a lot more than my personal finance app. And I get my work done. I have one big anchor client, and I'll usually do that in the morning first because I'll be getting a lot of emails from that. And then I just want to get those out of the way. And that's like my number one time management thing is to just suck it up and do the things when it's brought to my attention and not try to like kick the can down the road because that's when I really get into trouble. And then I have that like initial, can you do this? And then that deadline down the road. And if I don't do it in that like first step, then suddenly it's 11:58 at night with the due date of midnight and I'm panicking because I need to get this done in that time.
Yeah. Are you good at your own deadlines? Are you good at giving yourself a deadline and being like, this means something to me? 'Cause I would have issue with that. Like I would be like, I don't really care. That's it. I can balk at my own deadline.
They are harder than other deadlines, but I think when I tie them to the business, then that, like I said, that's kind of like disassociated from myself.
Hmm.
So that's like a an easier deadline to follow versus yesterday being like, I need to go get coffee before the grocery store closes tonight. I didn't go get coffee. I totally forgot. Immediately after I thought that I needed to get coffee before 6 o'clock, I
Hmm.
that went out of my head. So yeah, business ones, I think there's like a, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but like a higher calling outside of myself that is attached to those deadlines versus the ones for me personally.
Wait, say that again. So the ones that come from you that are like that aren't necessarily nothing bad's going to happen, those are connected to.
Not in like a religious sense
Mhm.
necessarily, but uh, I believe in the work that I do, and I believe in putting in work to make it successful, make my business successful, make it so
Yeah.
that I can help more people. And when the deadlines are attached to the success and the longevity of that work,
Wow.
then there's a reason to honor those deadlines.
That's awesome.
Someday, I hope to get to the place where I am also worth honoring the deadlines because I myself am like the higher power worth reckoning with. But in the meantime, uh if it's work and helping people, then that's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I'm like on my end, I'm if I have a routine going, then I cannot think about it necessarily. Like I know for a fact the podcast is going to come out every Monday.
Hmm.
So if I record on a Saturday, I record on a Sunday, I'll record on a Sunday. I just know it's always there on the radar. But some of these things just never are. Finances for me, it is a thing that I have to build from scratch, which is why I was mentioning exposure therapy because I
Hmm.
have I it's just never something I want to sit and look at. And if I'm sitting and looking at it, what am I looking at? Am I doing good to this month or am I doing bad this month? And so I love the idea of attaching the worth of the business, the worth of the calling and the what we're doing, because we do very similar work
Hmm.
in different niches, right? But
Yeah.
and it's rewarding. And so I love the idea of attaching, I'm going to be looking at my finances because it's going to benefit the work I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Just in
like
the moment,
that's
it's
all
so hard.
connected together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that like with personal finances for me, that's still where a lot of the shame is connected. That's where the creditors are connected to personal finance. The credit
Hmm.
card that gets canceled because I didn't notice that they started taking from a different pocket of my bank account. That's like the personal finance that I I do still blame the credit company because it was a problem that I caught. I don't need to get into an argument about it on this podcast, but it's, that still
Let's get him on the
ultimately.
horn. Let's get him on the phone right now.
Yeah.
Dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee. That's funny.
But, like those are all the failings of like little raccoon me who's just struggling to figure out how to work in this
Hmm.
world. But the business is something that uh, doesn't have all that same baggage, and I can just focus on this and making it a success. And then I pay myself a salary through that account and drop a certain amount into my personal finances. And then that's like a whole other conversation that I have to have, which is harder. But because I know that at least I paid myself, then it can be a little bit easier.
Yeah, well, that's probably a fun one too in the beginning where you're like, I got paid $5.75 today. You're worth every penny, buddy.
Yep, yep.
Everything else was like, please help me stay afloat. Please.
Mhm.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, so this is super helpful. And it's super helpful to see or to hear your perspective on things because some of them aren't the same as mine, but I'm going to try yours on like a hat and see how that wears. But it like really for ADHDers who are building their own thing, what kind of advice would you give when it comes to getting your financial world set up? I know neither of us are financial planners, so it's a really hard thing to say, but in terms of ADHD strategies and tips, and it's like, what did you do and how did you do it? What would you recommend based on things that were successful to you and maybe things that weren't?
I love free classes. I love small price affordable classes. So I just attended everything I could on business finance, on starting up a business, uh on coaching, on like
Mhm.
anything that I could that felt remotely relevant. I signed up for and just tried to absorb as much information as possible. And not everybody's brain works that way. Not everybody's schedule allows for that. I also have the luxury of not having any children or other people that I'm caring for. So,
Mhm.
that's not an option. If it is an option, then I recommend it because there are a lot of people out there who, like you and I, are trying to help people
Mhm.
and have good advice to share. I also, and I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and there's a lot of good advice on podcasts. I also would not just sign up for whatever, and I'm saying this from experience. Don't just
Mhm.
sign up for whatever platform somebody tells you is a good platform because that can be a really dark cave that is hard to turn around in once you're a certain amount in there. So find like a system that works for you, and it doesn't have to be the prettiest.
Yeah.
And most clients don't care all that much if the invoice that you're sending isn't a beautiful design. They're not going to care if you're sending an email that isn't, you know, an immaculately designed. If you're a designer, that's another thing. But for those of us who are not doing that kind of
Yeah.
work, the people who are reaching out to you and are hiring you for the work that you do, not for all of the flashy stuff that you're giving them. And
The
so
way
don't
you write an email,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So like don't
Totally.
it's easy I think for our ADHD brains that can get caught up in perfectionism that have been taught that we're not good enough. And so we try to cover up our inadequacies, our so-called inadequacies with
Hmm.
all of these shiny new things, which makes us incredible at what we do because we really like polish that stone before we put it out into the world.
Yeah.
But just make sure that you're polishing the right stones and focusing your energy on the right things because other people who are championing you don't care about those little things and don't think
Hmm.
you're nearly the failure that you've been told you are, and probably have no idea that you have that voice in the back of your head. So just allow
Yeah.
yourself to be successful and allow people to give you money that they want to give you for the thing that they trust that you're good at.
That's beautiful. I love that. Oh my God. That's, you were talking about the uh deep dive on get the information in the early times. I really want to jump because I was the same way. This was the first time that I did not jump headlong into a thing, spend a whole bunch of money and go, here we go, and like just jump right into the middle. This is the first time I was like, I want to do this. It's connected to my purpose. So I would go to the Small Business Development Center.
Mm-hmm.
It's all free. Like it literally government free programs on how to do there's a finance person there, there's a legal person there. So doing all that so that I wasn't blowing all my money and I kept my other job until I
Mm-hmm.
was like I can do this. This is going to, I was able to, without horrific stress, right? Go
Yeah.
make the shift. Oh
I,
man.
I think something else, I have ADHD. I also have a frontal lobe processing disorder, which I think is where my real hardship with spreadsheets comes from. And I
Oh,
have dysgraphia, which is very ironic for a writing coach.
really? What is
As a
dysgraphia?
writer. It's in the simplest terms
Yeah,
possible,
please. The
it's,
very simplest
yeah.
term.
Because my mom, whenever I say this, she's like, it's not actually like that. But for all intents and purposes, if you think of dyslexia as the scrambling of information input, dysgraphia is the scrambling of information output.
Really? So if you're writing, you're spelling words wrong, backwards, forwards, that kind of a thing?
hmm And it
Oh,
can come out in
wow.
my speech. It happens just in my thoughts as I'm trying to when I start talking about it, it becomes really pronounced, but
That was
I
good.
have
Okay.
a lot of like pauses in my speech because
Oh,
the words that I'm looking for just get really like bottlenecked in there
oh,
and get kind of like flipped. It's like all of the letters are breached in my as they're
wow.
trying to like be birthed. So it's
They're
it's a
reach.
struggle. Yeah.
They're coming out sideways.
Yeah. Um, so I mention all of that because there's a lot of reasons that I could tell myself that I'm not good at what I do. And I think that in actuality, and I've heard this from people who I've worked with over the years, it's made me a lot better. I can be more empathetic. I can be more attentive. I can be more flexible. I can advocate for others better.
Mm.
And because I have dysgraphia, I think that it makes me a lot more selective in how I communicate and in the words that I choose because they have more time to be like coming out as they're getting kind of like jumbled together. So my big advice, I think, for people who aren't neurotypical is to not think of, I know I'm not trying to say that ADHD is a superpower. I think that it has pros and cons for sure.
Yeah.
But don't think of them necessarily as the limiting factor in your inability to start the business that you know in your heart you can start. And when you start running into issues, before you get into the negative self-talk, just take a moment, take a breath, and say, is this a personal failure? Is this somebody telling me that I shouldn't be doing this because I am stupid and I am bad? Or is this an ADHD flub? Is this a
Mhm.
is this just a whoopsie that I made? Or is this something that is just like needs to be adapted for how I work because I've been modeling after somebody whose brain works differently than mine.
Oh
And just
man.
allowing yourself that little bit of breath before jumping into attack mode can make all the difference in being able to like succeed, I think.
That's awesome. That is great encouragement, and you're awesome. You're an awesome human being.
You're
That's my
awesome.
word for that. But we're kind of at the end here. I mean, I could probably obviously chat at you all day long about all kinds of things, but this has been a really cool conversation. And I know we didn't even necessarily stick to time management and finance. We kind of crossed
No, sorry about that.
no, this is what I love about these. There's nuggets everywhere in here, and I really appreciate you coming to talk to us. Can you? This was all in the up top, and we'll put all this stuff in the show notes. But if you wanted to give people a little bit, because we weren't really talking necessarily exactly what you do,
Mhm.
exactly how you help people. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then we'll say our goodbyes. How about that?
Sure. All right. So I'm Carolyne Whelan. I am a writing and self-editing coach. I mainly work with athletes, adventurers, also people who are neuroatypical, in how to structure their work, take themselves from maybe writing a blog or a travel log into crafting a book or becoming a published author, learning how to work with editors, learning how to find the deeper meanings in their stories and then write towards that versus just a like, I did this and then I did this and then I did this. Try to essentially give people all of the information that I didn't get myself in grad school
Uh-huh.
and also get people to feel comfortable and excited to reapproach their own work for like the second and third drafts without a lot of like
Yeah.
self-criticism.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And my website is currently just my name, CarolineWhelan.com. And my business is Forward Motion Coaching. I also host retreats, and those are currently yearly, and they blend movement, meditation, and writing to help people break out of writer's block and re-find your creative voice.
Wow. That's freaking awesome. And me personally could benefit from the like second and third drafts are the worst. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
look at this again. I did it already. Isn't it perfect? Why can't it just be done already? So,
It's it's honestly really hard, and
yeah.
especially when you have rejection sensitivity dysphoria, when an
Yeah.
editor comes back to you and says, change all of this, and it's like, you want me to change me?
Why do you hate me? Why,
Yeah.
why do you want me dead? I don't understand. That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
so funny. Oh my God. Well, okay. So links to all this stuff will be the show notes. And thank you so much for being here. And then, oh my God, we're going to see you next week. If
Yeah.
anybody listening to this wants to come and listen to Caroline talking about writing, we'll have it in the public section you don't have to be a member of ADHD Big Brother. You can join up, not join up, but like you can get into that workshop. That'll be so much fun. I'm looking
And I'm
forward to it.
also gonna send you the link to my metaphysical guide to self-editing also,
Oh, that's
for
right.
anybody who
Okay.
listens. So
So
it's
the link will be in the show notes for that as well. And thank you, Caroline. This is awesome. We're gonna talk again. So I'll just say goodbye. I'm never gonna see you again. Oh, it's been such a thank you for doing this. I really do
It was
appreciate
so
it.
fun. You're great. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye. Yeah, what a gosh darn. I said gosh darn. I'm the guy that says God damn it. And I just was what a gosh darn delightful human being. She's great. Okay, everything's going to be in the show notes, you guys. Visit CarolynWhelan.com at CarolYne. Whelan is WHELAN, one word, CarolynWhelan.com. Go there, connect with her. Hire her to fix your shitty writing. I'm just kidding, but not really. I mean, seriously. But speaking of creative writing guidance, she's going to give us a workshop in the community on Thursday this week, if you're the week that this is being released. And it'll be in the public events of ADHD Big Brothers. Guess what? You don't have to be a paid member to attend. Alrighty. That'll do it. We're done here. Make sure you go explore all the show notes, grab Caroline's freebie, and if you have any questions about anything you heard today, feel free to contact her through her website. Sound good? Awesome. Alrighty. So with that, God, this was a fun one for me. I hope you guys got some tasty nuggets out of it. And beyond that, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I shall talk to you later.